This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The White House is celebrating the Trump administration's first 100 days. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
President Trump rolls back another big tariff, this one affecting the auto industry.
They all want to come back to Michigan.
I'm Rich Johnson.
The Supreme Court seems likely to rule in favor of a family whose house was wrongly raided by the FBI. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Learning more about the driver of an SUV that plowed into an after-school program in Illinois. I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, stocks are coming off a winning day yesterday. Today is the final trading day of April. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
President Donald Trump has dismissed many former President Joe Biden nominees to the United States Holocaust Memorial Council. Hayat Panjwani, Washington.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The Trump administration celebrates its first 100 days of the president's second term in office, which included highlighting achievements on immigration reform, tariffs, and a big change in the way things are done in the White House from the prior 4 years. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
I think the aperture of uncertainty will be narrowing, and as we start moving forward announcing deals, then there will be certainty. President Trump creates what I would call strategic uncertainty in the negotiations. So he is more concerned about getting the best possible trade deals for the American people.
The White House is celebrating the Trump administration's first 100 days.
In 100 days, we have delivered the most profound change in Washington in nearly 100 years. I read an editorial today that this is the most consequential presidency in history. How about that? The number of illegal border crossers released into the United States is down, listen to this please, 99.999%.
Spokeswoman Caroline Levitt used a morning briefing to tick off the president's economic accomplishments.
Today officially marks 100 days of promises made and promises kept by President Trump. This has truly been the most historic start to a presidency in American history.
Congress's top two Democrats see it far differently.
No president in modern history has promised more on day one and delivered less by day 100 than Donald Trump. In record time, the president has turned a golden promise into an economic ticking time bomb. It's getting worse every day, and he calls it progress.
Characterized by chaos, cruelty, and corruption.
100 days from hell.
Both Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries say Democrats will spend coming days highlighting the president's failures, starting in the Senate.
We will take to the floor and expose Donald Trump as a disastrous president in his first 100 days. We ask America to listen.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
As part of his 100 days of achievement, President Trump traveled to Michigan for a rally and announced he's rolled back another tariff that was set to take effect this week, which was welcomed news for American automakers. Correspondent Rich Johnson reports.
We stand on the shoulders of red-blooded Michigan patriots. What great people. I love you, Michigan.
And President Trump felt the love from auto workers during Tuesday's rally in Warren, Michigan. Beforehand, he signed an executive order significantly softening the planned tariffs on imported auto parts. That, he told the crowd, will lead to big things.
And a lot of auto jobs coming. Watch what's happening. The companies are coming in by the tens. You got to see what's happening. They all want to come back to Michigan and build cars again.
The 25% tariffs on imported auto parts, scheduled to take effect this Saturday, has been modified to eliminate multiple tariffs on the same product. Imported cars will still be subject to a 25% tariff, but the administration is easing tariffs on imported parts, which are vital to the U.S. auto industry. The ultimate goal?
He's committed to bringing back auto production to the U.S. So we want to give the automakers a path to do that quickly, efficiently, and create as many jobs as possible.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent earlier Tuesday at the White House. The CEOs of America's largest automakers, GM, Ford, and Chrysler parent Stellantis, all praised the tariff rollback, saying it will help them invest more in U.S. manufacturing. Trump began his Michigan visit at an Air National Guard base that was in danger of closing. Instead, he announced a new generation of fighters, as well as some air tankers, will be based there. Doug Koopman, professor emeritus of political science at Calvin University, says that's a big win for Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who's faced criticism from fellow Democrats for occasionally cooperating with Trump.
Donald Trump has a special attention to and affection for the state of Michigan. He's ended his campaigns here. He wants to help the industries in the state of Michigan, and that is the common interest of Gretchen Whitmer in her last 2 years as governor.
Koopman's comment courtesy of WZZM-TV in Grand Rapids. I'm Rich Johnson.
Update on that FBI botched raid when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Spring thunderstorms are in the national forecast. With details, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Once again, parts of the southern plains are in line for some very active weather as a strengthening disturbance rolls through the region, with another day featuring the risk for storms to be able to produce damaging winds, hail, and even some tornadoes this afternoon and tonight from northern portions of Texas into much of Arkansas, areas of Missouri to the south of I-44, and even into western Kentucky. Some of that same area faces another round of developing flood risk due to the latest string of days with downpours in the region, with this marking the third potentially significant flood event of the month in some locations through Thursday evening. A more general risk for thunderstorms covers the rest of Missouri and most of Illinois, also extending eastward into Indiana and West Virginia. There may even be a spotty thunderstorm once again near the Alabama-Georgia border, into eastern Tennessee and western parts of the Carolinas and across most of Virginia today. To the north of that zone, high pressure will instead allow for cleanup efforts to proceed in the wake of devastating thunderstorms that produced a wide swath of wind damage in parts of the Northeast on Tuesday. The western United States will have some active weather as well today, mainly along and behind the path of a cold front that continues to dive southward through the interior. Thunder showers, at least spotty in nature, are expected from the high ground of interior central California into adjacent parts of western Nevada. There may also be some thunder from southeastern Wyoming to central Nebraska and eastern South Dakota, but most of the precip from the northern plains across the interior west should just be rain showers today. In St. Louis, expect clouds today with showers and a thunderstorm, the high 73. For Boston, look for sunshine and breezy conditions with a high reaching 69. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The U.S. Supreme Court heard the case involving a family whose house was targeted by the FBI in a botched raid. Details from correspondent Ed Donahue.
The Supreme Court seems likely to rule in favor of a family whose house was wrongly raided by the FBI. FBI agents broke down Trina Martin's door in Atlanta before dawn in 2017.
I was in a corner of the closet, and it's an agent in front of me with a gun pointing to my face with a bright light.
Martin says she, her boyfriend, and then 7-year-old son were terrified. Agents later realized they were in the wrong house. Martin wants to hold federal law enforcement accountable in court, but we're told they can't sue over an honest mistake. The justices seemed open to giving Martin and her family another chance to sue over the raid. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was among those who suggested there could be some situations where law enforcement decisions should be shielded from liability, though perhaps not here. Ed Donahue, Washington.
We're learning more about the deadly crash involving an SUV that rammed into a school building in Illinois. Correspondent Clayton Neville has an update.
Police in Chatham, Illinois, outside Springfield, say the SUV drove through an after-school building.
There are 4 fatalities, 3 that were struck outside of the building before the vehicle entered.
According to Chatham Deputy Police Chief Scott Tarter, the building hit by the SUV is home to the group Youth Needing Other Things Outdoors, which holds after-school programs.
The driver and sole occupant of the vehicle was uninjured and transported to an area hospital.
Police said 2 7-year-olds, an 8-year-old, and an 18-year-old were killed. 6 more children were taken to hospitals.
The vehicle crashed into the east side of the building went through the building and exited out the west side.
Toxicology reports on the 44-year-old woman driver are pending. She's not in custody as the cause of the crash is still under investigation, but police are confirming that it does not appear the crash was a targeted attack. I'm Clayton Neville.
Amazon reverses course on tariff displays. Jessica Ettinger has that in business news when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. The business report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a winning day for stocks. The Commerce Secretary saying a trade deal is done. The Dow gained 300 points. The Dow and the S&P 500 index are on pace to notch 3-month losing streaks at the closing bell this afternoon. Now, the Commerce Secretary told CNBC in an exclusive interview, a trade deal is coming. It's what investors have been waiting for.
I have a deal. Done. But I need to wait for their prime minister and their parliament to give its approval, which I expect shortly. Well, I'm not going to tell you what country. Let the president.
It's just you and me here and a couple million people hopefully watching.
Let the president decide.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick with CNBC anchor Brian Sullivan. The White House has promised 75 to 90 trade deals still to be done. Starbucks out with disappointing earnings after the closing bell last night, but the company is optimistic about its turnaround. Amazon will not itemize tariff costs when shoppers hit that checkout screen after President Trump called Amazon's founder.
Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly.
Other retailers are showing tariff costs for shoppers to see. Lawmakers in Washington trying to shift the focus from tariffs to tax cuts as they work on a new tax bill. The Treasury Secretary talked about helping working Americans.
President Trump is adding the things for working Americans that is talked about earlier: no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, making auto payments deductible. So that will substantially address the affordability crisis.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Consumer confidence tanked in April to the lowest in almost 5 years.
Consumer confidence weakest since April of 2020. And if we look at expectations, you have to go all the way back to October of 2011 to find a lower number.
CNBC's Rick Santelli. Coca-Cola out with strong quarterly results. It says tariffs won't affect the company much, but they could impact bottlers, retailers, and ultimately the consumer. Live cattle hit another record high on demand for beef in the U.S. and the smallest American herd since the 1960s. On today's watch list, it is the last day of April trading. We're going to get the latest on U.S. economic activity with GDP numbers, gross domestic product. Earnings are coming today from Facebook parent Meta, Microsoft, and McDonald's. We get ADP data on private company hiring. We get new numbers on personal income and spending, and also out March pending home sales numbers.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Vultures in New York City, this time at the Bronx Zoo. That story and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. President Trump has fired a number of Biden appointees from Washington, D.C.'s Holocaust Museum, including former Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, the husband of Kamala Harris. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
President Donald Trump has dismissed many former President Joe Biden nominees to the United States Holocaust Memorial Council. That includes Doug Emhoff, the husband of former Vice President Kamala Harris. Emhoff, who is Jewish and led the Biden administration's efforts to combat anti-Semitism, criticized Trump's action. He said, "Let me be clear, Holocaust remembrance and education should never be politicized." Since taking office in January, Trump has moved to fire many Biden appointees across the government, including some in apolitical roles. Biden also dismissed some Trump carryover appointees after he entered the White House in 2021, but at a far smaller scale. Most notably, 18 appointees named to the U.S. military academy boards. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
This is the case of both not biting the hand that feeds you and making sure it gets fed. Correspondent Julie Walker reports on the innovative approach being taken at the Bronx Zoo in New York to feed a vulture.
At the Bronx Zoo, a baby vulture is being hand-fed. But that hand is inside an elaborate puppet that was specially made by the zoo to look like another vulture. Video posted by the zoo shows the decades-old feeding technique, which they say ensures the chick survives and doesn't get too attached to humans. The Bronx Zoo says while the baby's mother and father are there, king vulture parents are known to neglect their offspring. They also wanted to make sure the lineage of the 55-year-old father continues, since it only has one other offspring in another zoo. Julie Walker, New York.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, April 30th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Voters in Canada have spoken and the world reacts. I'm Clayton Neville.
The U.S. is ramping up pressure on Russia and Ukraine to move fast toward ending their war. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The Senate has confirmed former Georgia Senator David Perdue as ambassador to China. Jennifer King, Washington.
Florida could become the second state in the nation to ban fluoride from drinking water. I'm Sue Aller.
We'll have an update on court proceedings in the Harvey Weinstein trial underway in New York City.
Summer movie season is upon us. What are the big movies to watch this year? I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. High winds yesterday were felt from Texas through the Northeast. Details on today's weather with AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Following a large complex of storms which AccuWeather severe weather experts are calling a derecho that produced widespread wind damage from southeastern Indiana to east central Pennsylvania on Tuesday, today brings much quieter conditions to the Northeast as high pressure returns. This will allow for cleanup efforts and power restoration to proceed without interference from the weather, but to the east of that zone, there is a heightened fire risk from New Jersey into southern New England, where the combination of gusty winds for a time and low humidity levels will promote the start and rapid spread of fires today. To the south of there, the stalling cold front will continue to spark at least spotty thunderstorms by the afternoon hours across much of Virginia, with higher coverage of showers and thunderstorms expected from the Ohio Valley into southern Iowa and points to the south. Today's highest risk for severe thunderstorms is expected from far southern Illinois into the southern plains, including the Dallas, Abilene, and Oklahoma City metro areas, where storms may produce hail, damaging wind gusts, and tornadoes this afternoon and into the night. Some of these parts of Texas and Oklahoma in particular had severe weather on Tuesday as well, and the repeated rounds of downpours pose an ongoing flood risk through at least Thursday evening from northeastern Texas into western Kentucky and much of Missouri. Spotty thunderstorms over parts of the southeast, mainly near the Alabama-Georgia border, and an advancing cold front will continue to be the focus for showers through the Intermountain West, especially from central Montana into northern Utah and Colorado. There may even be some thunder showers from the foothills of the Sierra Nevada and California across central Nevada, as well as parts of Nebraska and South Dakota. The rest of the West looks dry. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Canada has a new prime minister who's publicly rejecting President Trump's suggestion to make the neighboring country an American state. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports on the victory of the Liberal Party and what that means for U.S.-Canadian relations.
Voters have returned to Canada's Liberal Party to power for a fourth consecutive term, but the newly elected Prime Minister Mark Carney will lead a minority government. On Election Day, President Trump suggested Canada should become the 51st American state, as he said before. Carney rejected that idea after his narrow win by saying Canada will never yield to Trump's threats.
As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats.
Carney made a late jump in the polls as he pushed back against President Trump's tariffs.
The system of open global trade, anchored by the United States, a system that Canada has relied on since the Second World War.
He spoke about Canada's long tradition with the U.S.
Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over. The system of open global trade, anchored by the United States, a system that Canada has relied on since the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped deliver prosperity for a country for decades, is over.
But he said there has to be unity.
President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us.
Carney keeps his seat after beating Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre. He pledged support for his colleagues across the aisle.
Conservatives will work with the Prime Minister and all parties with the common goal of defending Canada's interests and getting a new trade deal that puts these tariffs behind us while protecting our sovereignty and the Canadian people.
The recent rift between the U.S. and Canada attributed to reasons why Liberals were able to stay in office, that combined with former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stepping down. I'm Clayton Neville.
The Trump administration continues to pressure Russia and Ukraine to end their war, but despite a Russian pledge for a 3-day ceasefire next week, attacks on Kyiv continue. President Trump's patience is wearing thin. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani files this update.
The U.S. is ramping up pressure on Russia and Ukraine to move fast toward ending their war. After days of President Trump increasingly airing frustration over the slow pace.
You know, they're losing a lot of people. We have 3,000-4,000 people dying every single week. That's a lot of people to lose. You can imagine parents waving from Ukraine and from Russia, waving to their son as he leaves, and you know, a week later he's dead on a battlefield, all carved up and chopped up. I've seen it. I see the satellite pictures. They're horrible.
A complete, durable ceasefire and an end to the conflict.
At a news conference, spokeswoman Tammy Bruce quoted Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
We are now at a time where concrete proposals need to be delivered by the two parties on how to end this conflict. How we proceed from here is a decision that belongs now to the president.
And if there's no progress,
we will step back as mediators.
That comes as Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky dismisses Russian President Vladimir Putin declaring a unilateral 72-hour ceasefire next week as an attempt to deceive the U.S. Instead,
reach a full and unconditional ceasefire as soon as possible for at least 30 days.
Russia's top diplomat calls that a 180-degree shift. Moscow's accusing Kyiv of manipulation by not directly responding to Putin's ceasefire.
I want him to stop shooting, sit down and sign a deal. And we have the confines of a deal, I believe. And I want him to sign it and be done with it and just go back to life.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The first accuser in the latest trial for Harvey Weinstein took the witness stand in a New York City court. Correspondent Julie Walker reports that Miriam Haley, who alleged that she was sexually assaulted by Weinstein, was the same witness who took the stand against the disgraced movie mogul nearly 5 years ago.
Mimi Haley told jurors that disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein sexually assaulted her and went into detail describing that act that she says happened at his Manhattan apartment in 2006. Asked if she had any interest in him, Haley said, "No, I did not. I was there to try to find work." She's the first of 3 accusers to take the witness stand against the 73-year-old. Haley also testified at Weinstein's first trial. Her lawyer, Gloria Allred, says it's never too late for justice.
I've been doing this now for 49 years. It hasn't slowed down at all. Continues. Many women seeking accountability, seeking justice.
Weinstein pled not guilty and denies he raped or sexually assaulted anyone.
The district attorney does not force victims or persons who have relevant evidence to testify if they appear to be victims. So she's not required to, and this was a very difficult decision on her part. But she's willing to, and I'm very proud of her for that result and that very tough decision.
His original conviction was overturned. Julie Walker, New York.
Weinstein's lead attorney insisted that his client's sexual encounters with the accusers, including Haley, were both transactional and consensual. Judge accused of helping a man escape, suspended. That and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. The Wisconsin Supreme Court issued an administrative order Tuesday calling for Milwaukee Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan to be temporarily relieved of her official duties. Dugan was arrested by the Justice Department last week after allegedly shielding an illegal immigrant from federal agents, preventing his arrest in the courtroom. That man was soon after apprehended outside of the courthouse. Judge Dugan is expected to appear in court in 2 weeks to face federal charges of concealing an individual to prevent discovery and arrest, which is a misdemeanor. The U.S. Senate has confirmed President Trump's new ambassador to China, a Georgia Republican familiar in both business and political circles. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
On this vote, the yeas are 67, the nays are 29, and the nomination is confirmed.
The confirmation comes during a diplomatic low point with the U.S. and China locked in a tariff showdown.
It's a goal to open China. That would be great.
President Trump is betting that tariffs as high as 145% will bring Beijing to the negotiating table, while the Chinese leadership has also raised tariffs, vowing to stand tough and reduce reliance on the U.S. market. Perdue, no relation to the Perdue Farms family, is a conservative who lost the 2022 Georgia Republican governor's primary to Brian Kemp. He has a business background and held high-level positions at companies like Sara Lee, Dollar General, and Hagar Clothing. Perdue has come to support Trump tariffs, but for much of his career, he specialized in outsourcing jobs and facilities overseas, usually in Asia. The former business executive says the U.S. approach should be nuanced, nonpartisan, and strategic. Jennifer King, Washington.
Florida's legislature has passed a bill that would make it the second state in the nation to ban fluoride in public drinking water. Details from correspondent Sue Aller.
Superior fluoride toothpaste.
Since the 1940s, fluoride has been widely recognized for its role in preventing tooth decay. Since that time, studies have shown that fluoride in water strengthens enamel, making teeth more resistant to cavities. Florida lawmakers have passed SB 700, also known as the Florida Farm Bill, which effectively bans fluoride from public drinking water. Here's Dr. Joseph Ladapo, Florida's Surgeon General.
We are issuing guidance to every community, every municipality, every county in Florida to stop adding fluoride to their community water systems.
This dentist, who appeared on NBC News, is not happy.
We know that fluoride works. All the journal articles have shown that.
There's a 25% reduction in children and adult decay for people that are in community fluoridated water.
Supporters of the bill argued that fluoride should be a personal choice rather than a government-mandated additive. However, opponents warn that removing fluoride could lead to increased dental health issues, particularly for lower-income families. The bill now awaits Governor Ron DeSantis' signature. If signed, Florida would become the second state to ban fluoride following Utah. I'm Sue Aller.
Harvard University issues a scathing report on the school's handling of anti-Semitism, which led to the school's president to issue an apology to students. The report found that anti-Semitism had influenced both coursework, social life, and even the hiring of some faculty members. Harvard President Alan Garber called the last school year disappointing and painful, which led to many Jewish students being fearful of being attacked on campus following the Hamas attack on Israel and pro-Palestinian protesting at the school. Harvard is being scrutinized by the Trump administration over accusations of anti-Semitism and is fighting the administration's withdrawal of billions of dollars in federal funding. Well, shifting gears, Bitcoin is still very valuable, but the cost of mining one Bitcoin adjusted for hardware and electricity may no longer be worth it. Here's tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
According to a report from CoinShares, the average cost to produce one Bitcoin has shot up to $137,000. In the report, the fourth quarter of 2024, the weighted cash average cost to produce one single Bitcoin amongst listed miners has jumped 47% quarter over quarter to a cashed out average cost of $75,767. What this means is, given the hardware and electricity costs, it's now difficult for Bitcoin miners to earn a profit while trying to mine one single Bitcoin. Another factor is the frequent need to replace hardware to be able to be competitive, and the looming tariffs that have weighed heavily on the electronics market. Additional factors like the competitiveness of the Bitcoin industry are contributing factors, but when you do the math, this date was bound to happen. Bitcoin currently trading at $94,600 and Ethereum at $1,800. Find me at chuckpalm.com.
With a check of midweek sports, here's America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
NBA playoffs, two teams advanced in the East last night. The Celtics slammed the Magic 120-89 to win that series 4-1, 35 points for Jason Tatum.
Whatever the game calls for, I say it all the time, we can win a quarter, a game, a series in different ways, and we showed that this series.
The Pacers closed out overtime on an 8-0 run to oust the Bucks 119-118 to take that series in 5 games. Pistons stayed alive, beating the Knicks. New York still up 3-2 as the series heads back to Motown tomorrow. And in the West, the Nuggets sailed past the Clippers to go up 3-2. Jamal Murray had 43 points. Stanley Cup playoffs in the East, the Hurricanes erased a 3-0 deficit and down the Devils 5-4 in double overtime to wrap up that series in 5 games. Sebastian Aho tied the game midway through the second period, then netted the winner 4 minutes into the second OT. Senators shut out the Maple Leafs 4-0 to prevent Toronto from clinching the series at home. Leafs still up 3-2. In the West, Brett Howden's overtime goal boosted the Golden Knights past the Wild. They go up 3-2 in that series, and the Oilers down the Kings for a 3-2 series lead. Baseball, the Yankees pummeled the Orioles 15-3. Trent Grisham, Aaron Judge, and Ben Rice hit back-to-back-to-back homers to start the game. New York added 3 more solo shots, a total of 19 hits. They're now tied with Detroit for the best record in the American League. Astros came back to tame the Tigers 6-4. The team with the best record in the majors also calls the Big Apple home. The Mets drilled the Diamondbacks 8-3 to improve to 21-9, 13-1 at home. That's Wednesday Sports.
What's old is new again in Hollywood when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Lots of movies are heading to the box office this summer, and it appears that remakes, reboots, and sequels will be topping the list. Here's entertainment correspondent Kevin Carr.
May starts tomorrow, which means summer movie season is ready to go.
The Avengers are not coming.
Kicking off 2025 is Marvel's anti-hero team, the Thunderbolts, saving the world. Marvel's other summer movie is Fantastic Four: First Steps, which hits theaters on July 25th.
Home. Take me home.
But all eyes are on DC with James Gunn's reboot of Superman hitting screens on July 11th. Remakes are huge this year, featuring the live-action Lilo and Stitch on May 23rd.
It's okay. I won't hurt you.
How to Train Your Dragon hits on June 13th. Then Liam Neeson takes over The Naked Gun on August 1st.
Who are you?
Frank Drebin, Police Squad.
Sequels are the Hollywood way, with a dozen coming soon.
I need you to trust me one last time.
Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning arrives on May 23rd.
Once you walk onto that mainland, there's no rescues.
28 years later on June 20th, and Megan 2.0 on June 27th.
These dinosaurs were too dangerous for the original park.
Jurassic World returns with Rebirth on July 2nd, and finally, Adam Sandler hits the links with Happy Gilmore 2 on July 25th on Netflix.
Let them see the happy I fell in love with.
Leave it to Pixar for an original sci-fi adventure, Elio, on June 20th. I'm Kevin Carr.
There was a special ceremony in the nation's capital to honor this year's recipients of the Congressional Gold Medal. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports on the military unit 6888, who were recently celebrated in a movie on Netflix.
In a time of war, and in a world that questioned both their worth and their capability, this all-black, all-female battalion answered their nation's call with courage, dignity, and excellence.
The only black, all-female unit to serve in Europe during World War II, the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion, was presented with the Congressional Gold Medal. House Speaker Mike Johnson.
We are honored to be joined by over 300 descendants and family members of the 6888. Yeah.
The 6888 is credited with addressing a backlog of roughly 17 million pieces of mail to soldiers during its stint in England.
Processing roughly 65,000 pieces of mail per shift, they cleared the entire backlog in no less than 3 months. That's right.
The 6888 was an experiment, a pass-fail.
Representative Gwen Moore of Wisconsin.
None of them did it for glory. They did it for the love of country.
I'm Lisa Dwyer.
This was the day, but what was the year France and the U.S. agreed to the terms of the Louisiana Purchase? 1803. That treaty was signed 2 days later. America in the Morning for Wednesday, April 30th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.